Shar here today, and I am going to be making this simple Valentine's card using the XO backdrop in the portrait and also the party banners. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this out of some Ballet Slipper cardstock, and I'm going to go ahead and pop out all these little pieces. So this is kind of my first tip of the video. Pop out the pieces before you cut the banner because it's a little easier. Because when you run it back through, if you go ahead and cut the banner before you've popped them out, it kind of smushes them back together a little bit, and it just makes them a little bit more difficult to pop out. So I could pop them out a whole lot easier if I do it first, and then I'll cut my banner. The other tip is you can actually see the banner. So we're going to use the smallest party banner, and we're going to use the grid of the hearts and the X's and O's to kind of line it up. And then this is my second tip for this video. If you go ahead and pop them out, you can see the cut line on the die from the back side. So I've flipped it over so I could see where the line is on the die, and I'm trying to line it up between two of those rows of hearts at the top. And I'll show you why here in a second, because the first one I cut looked kind of funny because I didn't do this. So you can use that kind of grid of the hearts to line it up nice and straight. And you can see the top, I got this little jagged edge when I didn't line it up to be between the rows of hearts. So popping all those pieces out first before you cut this banner helps you line it up too. So I'm just going to hold it in place with a little bit of washi tape, and then there you can see that I've got it nice and lined up straight. And I don't have that weird funny top up there because I lined up that cut line between the rows. Now, at first, I was going to put a piece of guava cardstock behind it so you could see all those little hearts. But then when I put my X's and O's, which I cut from Louie's ABCs, out of raspberry cardstock, I felt like there wasn't enough contrast and it kind of got lost a little bit in the contrast of the guava paper behind. So now I have one cut from Ballet Slipper, which is very tone on tone, obviously, but it's almost too subtle. But those X's and O's definitely stand out a lot better. So what I decided to do was put some ink on the one on the back just to darken it up only slightly. So it's not going to be as dark as the guava, but it's not going to be exactly the same color either. So I'm going to use the Ballet Slipper ink to do this and an ink blending brush. So I'm just going to move this stuff out of my way, and I'm going to get my craft mat underneath so I keep my surface nice and clean. And I'm just going to add a little bit of ink to the whole thing so it's going to show through those cutouts of the banner that's on top. It's very light at first, but just go until you get the color that you want. And in my case, I only want very subtle difference between the actual cardstock color and then this inked cardstock. You want to make sure you do it all over though, even in the center, because you're going to see everything. So I'm making sure it's just nice and smooth. And now that I've got it kind of the color I want, you can see that that's just a very subtle difference. A little more than when it was just the plain cardstock color. I'm going to use my glue tube, and I'm putting like a line of glue every other row or so and around the edges. And then I'm actually going to flip this over and put it on upside down to kind of line it up and just pick that up. That keeps me from kind of shifting things around on the front. You don't need a lot of glue because you don't want it to kind of squish out those openings. So just a little bit to hold it together. And then a lot of times when I have something that's a whole panel like this, I will put a clear block on top and let it dry just a little bit. Now I thought about putting the center of the O's back in, but then I decided it might be a lot easier to use a bunch of those hearts that got cut out, and it would look pretty cute too. So I'm going to use a bunch of the hearts that I popped out, and I'm going to put them in the center of my O's. There's a lot more hearts than there are O's, so it's actually very easy to just use a bunch of those hearts than to try and find all my O's and then pop out the centers. So I'm just going to pick up those little scrap hearts with this Studio Katia embellishment wand, which has a waxy end. It's a lot like the jewel picker. And I'm just dropping those in the center of the O's. I went ahead and put a little dot of glue in all those O's so they're all ready for me. So I don't have to go back and forth between my glue and my little wand here. And I'm actually turning my banner to go to where my hearts are right side up. Rather than trying to turn my hand and turn my wand, it's just easier to turn my paper. So now that all those little hearts are in there, I can start to assemble the rest of my card. And just look how cute that is. So I cut 3 of each letter for each stack, I should say. So I'm stacking these so they're fatter and they kind of pop up a little bit off the page. So really in total I have 6 X's and 6 O's. And I'm just using my glue tube to put a little bit of liquid glue, and I'll stack those pieces together. It makes it like a thick chipboard kind of embellishment. And I'll just repeat this with the other X and the 2 O's. But you can see there how it has a nice thickness to it now. And now I can put these onto the banner. And again, I'm going to use that grid that the pattern of the die cut on the back creates to line up my X's. So you can see there's a line of hearts. So I'm going to space that above the hearts and line it up nice and straight. And then I'm going to actually glue down the other X. And I'm going to use the same method. So I'm going to make it below that line of hearts that's going through the center and make sure I have it kind of 2 hearts over from the edge, because that's what I did with the other X. It's a lot easier to line up the X's because they have flat tops and bottoms than it is the O's. But once these X's are in the right place, then the O's will be easy to place as well. So you can see I have one right above that middle line of hearts and one right below. And then I have spaced them the same distance in from the sides, 2 hearts. So now I can just pick up those O's and put those in place. So now that I have all my letters on, I can start to assemble my card. And I wanted to use the white wood grain cardstock for the background. So I cut it into a quarter so I can save the rest of the sheet for another project and not waste as much. So I feel like this makes your cardstock go a little further than if I made the card base out of this white wood grain cardstock. But it's nice bright white, it has a texture, and I think it just kind of steps it up a little bit versus having just a plain white card base behind the banner. So I want to pop up this banner a little bit off the background. So I'm adding some foam tape to it. I'm not sticking it down quite yet because I want to add some twine. So I thought about just stringing it through, but then I liked the idea of a bow on each side. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tie a ribbon for each side, or tie a bow for each side, but I'm not going to keep both of the tails hanging out because I felt like the tail that's on the inside of the banner hung over the letters too much and was a little bit distracting. So I just wanted that tail that's on the outside edge. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the tail that would be on the inside and I just strung it through. Now here I've got it strung through the other hole. I was just trying something, but I decided I liked the look and the idea of a bow on each side. So that's actually what I ended up going with. I'm just going to take the tail that's on the back side and hold it down with a glue dot, and then I can just cut the excess off. But that glue dot will hold it back there so it's out of the way. And then we'll just have the one tail on the front. So I'm going to cut the excess off. And then I'm going to do the same with the bow that I made for the other side. So I'll just thread that one tail back through and then just hold it down with the glue dot. And then I can just cut off the excess from that one too. So now those are held in place, and it actually is really nice because it will hold them in place as I mount the rest of this to my card. So I'm just getting them to look right, kind of turning them. It's kind of like little pigtails off the sides. And now I can remove the paper off of my foam tape and put this on my card base. Just making sure those are good and stuck down. And then I'm going to center it up and put this on my white wood grain card base. So you can just mess with these to get the curl the way you want them. They're looking pretty good. And finally I decided to embellish with some clear sequins. These kind of have a little bit of an iridescent shine to them. So just place them where I wanted them. And now I'm just picking them up with the embellishment wand, adding a dot of glue and putting them back down. Excuse my head, that was in the way. And then here is my finished card. I just think it's super cute. No stamping, all die cutting, nice and clean and simple. Here's another look at the card. Thanks for watching. Have an amazing day. Bye.